Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to Scoreboard on ACTN. I'm chatting with Dennis and Chris, and you know, anytime these guys here, it's always some hot topics we're dealing with. We were talking about the Super League that died.
And you give
Pop and fizzle.
Yeah, and I think that
a hole in it.
I think that there isn't much we can add to it again. Just as how it died.
The only thing I want to add to it is one of the problems with he alluded to the fact that the American business model is now coming over into Europe. And that is a very real thing, because many of the English clubs, Manchester City, and a number of these big clubs, when the chance to be bought by English billionaires, millionaires at the time it came up, they didn't. And what happened was American investors who understand the value of our sports team, understand the value of our sports franchise, went in and bought these teams. And now they are conducting business in the way they have always conducted business. So I find it very difficult for English clubs to be saying, well, we don't want these Americans coming here and spoiling our game. When you were offered the opportunity to buy your clubs, you didn't. That's why Glazer family owns Manchester United and not some English billionaires. And when the chance came up to buy Manchester United for $1, everybody, that ain't worth that. But these Americans sat back, saw the value, went in, bought it, and have since made their millions or trillions or billions. So that is part of the cultural change that's happening, and that cultural change will spread all the way through FIFA.
You know, look at a sport that has that type of pay structure. It has that type of revenue structure, and it has those kinds of restrictions to entry. Formula One. So the top 3 teams in Formula One have their own very sealed, very secretive revenue sharing pact. And what has happened? The world body has decided, you know what? We can't change that contract, but what we can do is we can change the rules to make the thing more competitive. Right? Otherwise, what happens? It gets boring. Do you want to see Ferrari and Red Bull and Mercedes win every single weekend? No.
Yeah.
Right? Look at that show on Netflix.
What
right?
show is that, buddy?
Drive to Survive with Formula One. The stories, the real compelling stories in the middle. Why this team fighting for last place, second to last place. Those things, you wouldn't watch those cars because the cameras on the race day don't even focus on these cars. You don't see them. You see them on the starting grid, and that's the end of that.
And then you see them when they finish.
But when you start to hear about the stories, it's hundreds of people, it's lives, it's stories, building all of those things together. When the Football Association, because there are only 2 teams in the British FA that have those kinds of background stories, and then there's Barcelona that has that story as well. So I think it's Sunderland, I think it's Barcelona, and there's somebody else I can't remember right now. And they're telling those stories. Those stories are more compelling than those nil-nil draws in the middle of some mud patch in the back of somewhere in the Midlands in England.
You sure you're talking about Trinidad?
No, I'm actually talking about Tottenham. Right? No, the fact of the matter is those stories are far more compelling. So there is more gold to get from that than there are from having a Classico or a Milan derby every fun Wednesday is madness.
Is that Tottenham fan?
No, I am stating this as a red man, first of all again. I am an Arsenal fan. Through thick and thin.
Yeah.
Goodness. Anyhow, that
besides
thick and thin,
has one character flaw that we will allow to discuss on this.
Yeah, we are off the air. No, let's talk a bit about
deal with them.
We had some good news here last couple of days.
Yes, sir.
Saturday with Jeremy Richards. Also, Nicholas Paul has been doing a fantastic job outside there. And I know you want to talk a bit about fun ride or something that is being organized for him.
So Nicholas Paul, world record holder, Trinidad and Tobago, son of the South soil. He recently launched the TNT to Tokyo online virtual ride. So what is this ride? It's to help raise funds. The reality of it is the Cycling Federation is cash-strapped. The government, the Ministry of Sport is cash-strapped. So the reality of trying to get Nicholas to all of the different events that he has to participate in, to be ready to step on that podium, because let me face it, Nicholas is that fast. Right? So that goes beyond any doubt or anything. Nicholas is that fast, and for him to be able to climb the top step, we ain't just trying to get the youth man to show up in Tokyo because we had that. This is not no glad man thing. This is to get Nicholas on the top step of the podium. Over the weekend, 2 weekends ago, he was in Belgium for his season opener. He did really well. He had a nice time. He came up against Jason Kenny. And his two-time Olympic gold medalist, Jason Kenny, right? You have to remember that he had a couple of rides, too many rides in his legs, and Jason Kenny had a much easier way into the final against Nicholas because Jack Carlin, Scottish rider, also on Great Britain team, he fell in that second ride, so he was facing Jason Kenny, who was fresh. So you had to bring all your guns to face a guy like that. So he came second, but he came second against the best in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible, second time, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
very incredible.
all of that to say that right now we need that help. On average, and we will put up the graphic with some of the costs breakdown for Nicholas's equipment and his special needs with regards to his preparation. He needs on average about $450,000 a year, each and every single year that he competes. And right now, we have to finish off the little polishing of this gem so that he would be able to represent Trinidad and Tobago to the fullest of his potential.
And he needs it more than ever because the Olympics is when? That's a couple
July 23rd it's starting.
Yeah.
100 days to go was what, last week or week
Something
before?
like that, yeah.
Right?
And then
So-
I want to add to that, I think Tennille Campbell has been doing really well. She's been riding, she's done a few races in the Spring Classics, it's called. Even though, I saw a newspaper article and you can, sometimes I just think the lack of knowledge of our sport reporters is sadly very...
We had a whole course, but
yeah, we had a course. She finished 100th in the race and it was well, she finished 100 and she was...
that was the headline.
Right? And I think obviously they didn't understand that Tennille was actually very much a massive part of her team's effort to win the race. And she had a very specific role in the race, which she did excellently. I was looking at the race, and I have been able to see large portions of the race. I was seeing it live. And she was actually the person leading the pace inside the last 10K, which is a massive, massive thing for her. So I thought she did really well. I would want to keep wishing her all the success.
Yeah,
so.
Tennille, or Teniel, as the Europeans pronounce her name. Teniel was doing extremely well. Right? She was driving that pace for the last probably over 5 kilometers in a race. And
Right
you don't
at the
see
end.
that. You don't see that. Usually what happens with that kind of pace line, you would have 3 or 4 riders switching roles. She drive the pace for 5 kilometers at the end of a race.
And had everybody string at the end.
And stringing it out. So the amount of wattage, Teniel, enough respect, you're really showing. And I think she's ready to take the next step to the next level. She had a hard time in the early part of the season.
It's been a tough internship for her with this team. Then you're talking about athletics. Jereem Richards has been running really...
Jereem was running a strong headwind.
That's the event on
Saturday or Sunday? Over the weekend.
Yeah.
And
Saturday.
In Eugene, in a nice new stadium, is really nice. But a strong headwind in that stretch is going to affect the times. And of course, these Americans want to see a world record every time you run out on the track. But I think the headwind situation over there in that new track in Eugene is going to be a problem for the optics of world leading and world championship and world record times. They might have to switch that so they will start to run counterclockwise or something. But he had a great time. He took out Noah Lyles. It was Josephus Lyles, the younger brother.
Yes, it was, yeah.
All right, he took him out. He had a really incredible time. Season's best for him and, one of the top 10 times in the world. And certainly Jereem is definitely podium ready. I can't say it in any better way.
But so far, we have seen Tennille, Nicholas, and Jereem, who has really, been up there. But we're not going to have any senior champs, to see our athletes, qualify. Who are some and how are they going to qualify to make the Trinidad team for the Olympics?
The 400, 200, 100 for the men, 100 meters in track and field. Those are going to be real fireworks. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see those fireworks because most of those athletes are based abroad. And what has happened is the NCAA, the NCAA has waived the compulsory participation at Open Champs for national team selection. That is all because of the COVID lockdown and the
travel
restrictions and the
quarantine
and all of these different things. So it will be hard for a professional athlete to stop training for 7 days entry, 7 days exit. That's if you could even get a flight, right? Because you have to go through the exemptions and all of that. So what has happened is these athletes have to make the performance standard abroad and get the rankings in the event.
So right? It's going to be a little tough because athletes...
Standards are ridiculously high.
Yeah, one, and then you're going to have athletes stretching their resources. The nice part about coming back for the nationals is you could have said, okay, I'm going to run 3 meets, then I'm going to come back for the open nats, run my time and qualify, and then I don't have to think about anything else. But the reality of it is you might go to a meet like he talked about, the Oregon meet, you meet a headwind, you don't do the time. And sometimes you might find yourself going to another meet, you didn't do the time. As weird as it sounds, a lot of times the expenditure to go, for example, if you bought a plane ticket to go from New York to LA or LA to New York, is as expensive, if not more, than flying from New York to Trinidad.
Yeah.
So it's not cheaper for some of these guys.
So even though it's internal, it's a disadvantage for athletes.
It's definitely a disadvantage.
It's a huge disadvantage.
And makes life very difficult for them.
It makes life very difficult for them.
All the local based athletes, like the Farina brothers, for instance, the twins, they compete in here, but they were basically barred from participation at the World Relays team. They couldn't be called because they couldn't leave.
But what I want to find out now, Dennis, is that what about the local athletes who would have had the opportunity to run at the
World Relays?
The senior champs?
Oh, Open Champs.
Right, Open Champs, in order to qualify, right? Now, there is no...
They don't have any opportunity.
Nothing. So the only ones that have the opportunity right now
are the foreign-based.
Foreign-based.
Right. So the kids in school, we have some real talent coming out of the school system. Dwight St. Hilaire in Kentucky, he is ranked in, I think, in the top 5 in the world in the 400. We also have other youngsters like Che Lara. We have Joshua St. Clair. We have... aside from the traditional names of the pros, right? So the Marshall Cedenios and the Dion Lendors, etc. We have a crop of really talented youngsters. Andre Marcano, he's not a youngster. He made his first Trinidad and Tobago team, and it's like a bittersweet pill. One day you get the call, yeah, you're on the team, right? You wait for it to sink in, and then you make that post, and then the next day is like, yeah, about that. Yeah, we cancel the trip. So yeah, it's tough. You have guys like Andre who are doing well, who've been doing well traditionally over the years, but just never made that next step to the national team. Now that they do, you had to deal with, there's a lot of mental hurdles, and that's something I think that the sports organizations in Trinidad have not really been taking on. Like for instance, in track and field. Track and field has been concentrating for this year, even though it's a start and start season, under 17 and under 9 and under 20 for CRIFTA team selection. What about the under 15s? They're not in school because they don't have exams to prep for, right? So they've been out of school since second term last 2020, and they're not in school until maybe September this year. So that's over a year and a half. They're not competing. Some of these kids, if it's anything like my children, I know they're drinking packed juice and eating snacks whole day.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Right?
Diet.
So the fact is, we need to figure out how to keep those youth especially, but also the pros, the kids who are trying to vie for NACAC under 23, Pan Am Juniors.
Let me add to that. Cancellation of CRIFTA games is more than likely possible.
Very likely.
Cancellation of Carifta Triathlon Championships, more than likely possible.
And this last week I saw all the entries events that it was supposed to be
Postponed.
having has been canceled.
Cancellation of any type of Carifta swimming championships,
Right.
more than likely cancelled.
But what would you
For
say,
the second year in a row.
Yeah, but what would you say is the effect of this on athletes? How much of them mentally strong enough to
Massive. We massive.
continue or to just fall by the wayside?
One of the points that Tay was making that we and I mean when we come back we'll expand on it, I hope, is right now only the national teams are allowed to train, right? So
Yeah.
the national netball team, football team, cricket team, right? Let's maybe basketball team. I don't know if they'd have one.
3x3, yeah.
But listen, schools football, when last it had that? What they're doing? Any of those football teams under 19, under 17, under 16, any of them playing any football other than small goal in the road? And that and all they can't play because right now they can't play that. So all of those things have stopped. People not running, people not playing cricket. When last they had any under 17 tournament? The West Indies cricket board couldn't have a regional under 19 tournament. So they're trying to see if they could select a West Indies under 19 team by having national team have trials. But the national teams in some cases just pulling together a group of people, hoping for the best. But they don't even know if the group of people they pulled together was the best. So it just makes things utterly confusing.
We have a crisis in sport, and we are not being led by policy that is proactive and thoughtful enough to think about the mental preparation as well as the physical constraints. Right now, we're in crisis.
On that note, we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll continue with that crisis because my concern is how much of these young athletes will hold on for another year because it appears as another year coming. Right? Viewers will be right back after the short break.